Good morning. It is 11:02 a.m. on Sunday, August 6th, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis. I just got up from sleeping in. And this is 5 more minutes. It is Sunday, so that means continuation of the rewatch of Avatar: The Last Airbender with Season 3, Episode 10, The Day of the Black Sun, Part 1. As with all these two-parters, there's a real temptation to not go ahead and watch part 2 right away. But I've been, previous two-parters, I resisted that temptation and only did one part at a time, so sticking with that this time. But of course, we talked last time about having kind of a palate cleanser episode to help transition us back into dealing with the A plot. That being the invasion and dealing with the Fire Lord and so on and so forth. But of course, here is the episode where we're back in full force. We spend a lot of the episode getting ready, but then the centerpiece of the episode is a big action sequence as as the Fire Nation invasion is underway. We do have some intercutting between the rest of the invasion itself and Zuko. So let's just deal with Zuko's storyline first, because there's not a lot to describe in terms of what happens, even as the thing that happens is very momentous for his story. Namely, we last saw him confessing to Mai that after sitting in his father's war council meeting, he realizes that the person that he is expected to be there is not who he is anymore, or maybe not who he was ever. But what was he going to do about it? Well, in this episode, we see that he's planning to leave, apparently. We don't get a lot of commentary from him about it, but he does go around, he packs some things, he leaves his armor behind, which makes sense given that if he's going to leave, then he can't really be the prince anymore. But he does apologize to Mai for leaving her, so I think that that's an evidence that he really does care about her still. He doesn't think of her as part of this whole thing that he's choosing to leave. It's more of a consequence that he can't leave and stay with her at the same time. And the other stop that he makes is to visit a shrine for his mother, where he basically apologizes for having made poor decisions in the past and that he's going to try to make things right. So this is kind of exciting for us to see what Zuko is maybe going to do, but we are kind of left a little bit frustrated in this episode, at least, just in the sense that we see him preparing to leave, but it definitely feels like there's going to be another shoe to drop, right? So we don't really get that in this episode. We do suspect, of course, that Zuko, despite having left... despite leaving is a letter for Mai, is not likely to leave a letter for or say anything really. Maybe a letter, but not going to tell Azula or Fire Lord Ozai for sure. We wonder if he's going to leave a letter for them at all or just be missing, right? But for sure, I don't think he doesn't want anybody to know ahead of time. He's not telling Mai in person that he's leaving. He's just leaving, and yeah. So that's a huge character moment for Zuko, and I think it's kind of cool in this episode how underplayed it is. I mean, and underplayed just in the sense that they don't make it a big thing. They just have him. His decision is made, and he's just calmly, without a word. Well, not without a word, but he's just making his preparations. But where's he gonna go? Well, we'll have to see. We also get a couple of scenes with Iroh still in prison, despite our suspicion that he's maybe able to get out of there when he needs to. But in any case, he is still being taunted by the warden, still keeping up his act that he's really weak, even though we know better. Um, but the warden is still mean. But there is the one nice guard who smiles at him and brings him stuff, and he thanks her. And then later, he kind of warns her a little bit that she should maybe not stick around for the afternoon. But one little weird little goofy trivia bit is that this special tea that she brings him as a present, she says, "I brought you white jade tea because I know you like exotic teas." And it's a really nice moment, but we could be forgiven for forgetting that white jade tea is specifically the tea that he almost poisons himself with back in season 2. Because when Zuko and Iroh were on the run, there is a moment where it's played for comic effect, but Iroh specifically finds a plant that he talks about having. It's confusing. It's hard to tell the difference between the white dragon plant and the white jade plant. And the white dragon plant makes excellent tea, and the white jade plant is poisonous. And he makes the tea, and turns out, nope, it was the white jade, which means he's poisoned and needed medical attention. And so the idea that she brought him white jade tea, but the scene plays it as though that's an actual nice thing to have, um, is probably a mistake. I don't think it ever comes up again. So that's why I suspect it's probably a mistake. Because, of course, you could take something like that into a really dark direction of, say, oh, we're offering you an opportunity to kill yourself with this poison. But that does not seem to be how the scene plays in the show. So it seems more likely that it's a mistake, but it's kind of a little unfortunate in that respect. In any case, it's not that it's a big deal. It's just kind of funny to notice that. But by warning this guard that she shouldn't stick around gives indication that Iroh knows something's going on. But what does he know about, right? What is it that he knows? We remember that as evidenced by the end of this episode, Azula and the others did find out about that the eclipse was coming and that there was going to be an invasion. So I'm forgetting off at the moment what they did find out, and obviously that's why they went into hiding. And I'm blanking at the moment on how it was that they found out. Right. Okay. It was because when they had infiltrated the king's chambers at Ba Sing Se, they heard about it at that time. Before everything went south there. So in any event, because Azula knew that there was a planned invasion on the day of the Black Sun, it looks like they were able to go into hiding in advance, which is a dismaying end result for a plan that otherwise seems like it's going pretty well. But let's talk about that plan. We start the episode with kind of an exciting reunion tour of a bunch of characters, friends that the kids had made over the course of the seasons up till now. We see the Foggy Swamp Tribe waterbenders, those guys that we last met in the swamp, and they're just as silly as before, including the bit where Hugh had previously talked about saying time is an illusion and so is death, in a really ominous moment, and in this one we get a comic payback of him saying pants are an illusion and so is death. So we have them coming back. We meet Haru again, who is the earthbender who had been hiding that he was able to earthbend. This was all the way back in season 1, and then he got imprisoned, and this was where they faked earthbending so that they could get taken to this prison ship and try to rescue everybody, and inspired them to take back the prison and escape. So we get them back. We meet once again the Mechanist and Tio, who had taken up residence in the northern air temple, which was very frustrating and upsetting to Aang at the time, and so was the fact that the Mechanist had been extorted by the Fire Nation into making weapons for the Fire Nation. But at Aang's insistence, Aang interrupted the deal that was supposed to be made, and that was going to provoke an attack. But the Mechanist and Tio, ably redeemed themselves in defending the temple, and so now they're here to help with that too. And of course, we meet Pipsqueak and the Duke again, who we last saw as part of the forces that were disguised as Fire Nation when Aang woke up from being struck by lightning. So we get it's neat to get reminders of all of these people. We get some funny stuff with the bomb, using peanut sauce, which is destructive and delicious, and getting a new glider for Aang, which is a big deal since his last one was destroyed and then he burned the pieces. And again, some more silliness and it has a secret snack compartment. So obviously a lot of this opening episode is played for laughs, and we're supposed to be just happy that we're seeing all our old friends again, and we're excited for this upcoming thing. But it's a little bit complicated because Sokka has been working really hard to make this plan. And there's some nice series continuity too, because we see him using the maps that he bought when he talked about wanting fancy atlases, where he used some money to buy fancy atlases a while back, and he previously had used some money to buy pieces that he was going to make into armor for Appa, which we see the armor in this one, and so yet we see here where he's supposed to finally present the plan to everybody, and he kind of gets into a stage fright, and he really botches the presentation, and he's very embarrassed and unhappy about his failure there. And so his father kind of takes over, redeems the presentation of the plan, which addresses the very specific problem in this plan that the eclipse, which will steal the Firebender's powers, only lasts for 8 minutes, and the invasion's going to take longer than that. So they have to get into the the center of it before that happens. So it's they have a lot of work ahead of them in that regard. But as they're planning to leave, we have Sokka dealing with the fact that he feels like he failed in that presentation. And Aang goes to reassure him and says, yeah, but that was just public speaking. Your moment is going to be out there on the battlefield. And I think that that's true, although I think Aang could have also pointed out that it was also your plan. There's a lot of this plan that was all you coming together. And look at Appa's armor. You did that. A lot of this, the prep work, like you weren't able to do the final sort of presentation piece of it, but what was being presented was all you. And so, it's a little disheartening to see Sokka feeling so down on himself at that moment, because we know how great a job he's done for everything up to that one moment. But it's also a setup, we expect, for Sokka to have his moment on the battlefield, and of course that's what happens. So once we get the invasion taking place, it's pretty exciting when I like the sort of approach where they keep elements of the plan secret from us, the viewer, too, so that we can have this give and take of, oh no, the gates of the Fire Nation Bay are not what we expected. They're these big, giant, fiery nets. They're huge, and it's like, oh no, how are we going to get by those? Oh, but wait, they have some secret plan. It turns out, oh no, we're just drawing the Fire Nation boarding forces onto the ships that are now empty because we have submarines, which are pretty cool. Water-bending powered submarines, and water-bending giving Appa a big diving bubble to breathe as he swims underwater too. And dealing with a little bit of, grounding that technology by saying, oh, but they do still have to resurface once before they can get to the shore. And that also, of course, gives us an opportunity to have that be the moment where Aang is separating, because he's going off to try to deal with the Fire Lord personally, while the rest of the army is dealing with the invasion against the army. And this is the moment, right? We had in our last episode the moment where Aang daydreamed finally kissing Katara. But he knows that this is his last chance, really, because he thinks it's possible. What if I don't come back? We see him at the beginning of this episode feeling newly confident, but he's not unrealistic about it. And so the idea that he might not get another chance, he seizes the opportunity and steals a kiss from Katara. And I think that, in the abstract, we can suggest that maybe suddenly leaning in to kiss someone in a circumstance like that is not optimal. You know what I mean? It's like if if the condition was that she was really not into it, she could feel kind of a little bit violated that he just, stealing a kiss. He leaned in to kiss. She was not ready, did not, agree to anything there. Now, I don't think we want to make a big deal about that, but we can just kind of suggest that maybe there's better ways to handle that if you are emotionally mature, which Aang is definitely not. And that's further evidenced by the fact that he doesn't really even give her a chance to respond in any way before he just takes off. I think we can probably agree that that's due to some fear that he doesn't know what her reaction is likely to be. And for sure, we don't really get to see a definitive answer to that. She blushes, but she also doesn't look entirely happy. But of course, that's shaded by the fact that he's going off into danger, and she's aware that he did it because he thinks he might not come back. So that's kind of sad. So her emotions there are complex, and I think that's that's good storytelling. But in any event, Aang doesn't have a lot to have happen to him in the rest of it, so we can just go ahead and follow him up there. He's planning to get up to this inner sanctum and attack the Fire Lord during the eclipse. But what he finds as he makes his way in there is that that inner palace is empty. That's our horrified realization that, oh no, this plan, like, even if we're getting some success with this initial invasion, it was all for the specific intent of capturing this city and taking the Fire Lord, and that's not going to happen now, because we won't be able to find them before the eclipse. And not only that, but if they're missing, it's possible that the city is not the bulk of the forces, that there might be more of them somewhere else that could do something else, and so it's an upsetting realization to discover, oh no, the plan is a failure. It's like a partial success is the best they can hope for with the Fire Lord missing. And so that's disappointing for Aang for sure, but we're kind of leaving that as a cliffhanger in this episode. But so we have the big battle where we have the invasion force have the submarines that let them go up to the port, and then they have these various tanks that the Earthbenders can control. These fun little caterpillar-like tanks that can sort of climb up onto things and then crush them. We have Sokka in his Water Tribe wolf helmet armor, doing some pretty impressive stuff with his cool meteorite sword, and Toph and the other air. I didn't mention earlier the Earthbenders from the tournament that Toph used to compete in as the Blind Bandit, and so everyone's doing their thing. Participating in this battle. We see the Fire Nation putting up a pretty good fight, but still being driven back by this successful invasion. There's a brief setback because these battlements up on the tower are able to rain down these missiles, and it's pretty damaging. But so then Hakoda and Sokka and Katara fly up on Appa to take those out, and they take a bunch of them out. And then this is, of course, where we see Hakoda takes out one by himself, but is injured in the process. Which, although Katara is able to heal him so that he'll maybe be okay, he's not able to jump right back into battle, and that's where, for this final push, Sokka has to take the lead, and he does so ably. He has his moment and he seizes it. It's good stuff, and so it's a lot of action, which is not as much to, instead of just going beat by beat through the action sequence. I think we've covered the broad strokes of it, but this was a big episode. Obviously, this is before Aang kisses Katara and leaves. They specifically talk about nothing's going to be the same after this. It's not like some of those filler episodes where it's an adventure of the week. This is going to fundamentally change the status quo of the story. So exciting. So next week on Sunday, I will be back with The Day of Black Sun, Part 2. And I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.